Did you know in the 17th century, King Louis XIV of France, an absolute monarch, famously declared, "L'État c'est moi," or "I am the state," embodying the ultimate fusion of personal and political power. Many kings throughout history have also wielded absolute power. However, today, in most remaining kingdoms, kings and their royal families have become little more than ceremonial chiefs of the state. But what is a kingdom, and how do they even work? In this video, we'll explore the origins, evolution, and current status of kingdoms worldwide. Do genuine kingdoms still exist, or are they now confined to fantasy Disney tales and folklore? I'm Marco, this is how countries work. Let's get to it. So first of all, what is a kingdom? A kingdom is a type of political entity or state characterized by a monarchical form of government. In a kingdom, sovereignty and authority are typically vested in a single hereditary ruler known as a monarch who holds the highest position in the political hierarchy. The monarch may have varying degrees of power, ranging from absolute monarchy to a ceremonial role with limited governing powers. Key features of a kingdom include that 1. It is a monarchy. The central feature of a kingdom is a hereditary monarchy, where leadership rests in the hands of one ruler, and the right to rule is passed down through a royal family through hereditary principles, such as primogeniture or other established rules of succession. So as soon as one king dies, the next becomes the king. Therefore the phrase, "the king is dead, long live the king." 2. It has centralized authority. Kingdoms tend to have a centralized system of governance where the monarch plays a significant role in decision-making and administration. However, in modern constitutional monarchies, the monarch often serves as a symbolic and unifying figurehead for the state, representing continuity and tradition. This still comes from a central position, so centralized authority remains whether real or symbolic. 3. Legitimization of authority. In all kinds of monarchies or kingdoms, there is always a source of legitimization of the king or queen's authority. It can be a tacit social contract between the people and the ruler, or a divine authority given to the king. Such authority is safeguarded by various institutions and ideologies that keep the people under control. However, at times, the legitimacy can shift and it can mean the end of a certain king's rule and even life. Looking back throughout history, you can find monarchs from all regions of the world. You'll find them in medieval Europe to Africa to ancient China, kings with colorful robes and adorned faces to kings with little more to their ownership than their subjects. Kings who hoarded all power and others who like to share their authority with a few from the nobility. But what legitimizes this figure and his endless power over his subjects? The origin of kingship, specifically the establishment of a monarch's legitimacy, has been a topic of historical and anthropological inquiry. There are two main theories that offer contrasting perspectives on how kingship originates. One theory posits an eternal origin, suggesting that kingship emerges from within a social group. In this view, the transition from an influential figure into a monarch involves an individual evolving from a moral and religious symbol for various autonomous groups to someone with the authority to command these groups. This shift reduces the groups to subordinate entities under the monarch's rule, and people willingly make this person their king in exchange for stability and safety, a kind of invisible social contract. Conversely, the opposing theory argues for an external origin of kingship, often arising from military conquest. In this scenario, the transition is from an external leader to a king, as an individual originally established through force gains acceptance from the group due to their exceptional nature, which bestows upon them a sacred quality and legitimacy in the eyes of the entire community. It's crucial to note that the force with which an outsider imposes authority is often seen culturally as the manifestation of superior power, imbuing them with a sacred dimension, which is perceived as a privileged relationship with a higher force. In short, divine authority. This is also reflected in the divine right of kings, where the king is seen as the vicegerent of God on earth himself. To illustrate these theories, let's consider the case of the Congolese kingship among the Bantu people in West Africa. Story time. In the 14th century in Africa, there was a warrior named Lukeni who initially lacked authority within his own group. However, he managed to establish his legitimacy through a series of strategic actions. First, Lukeni set his sights on the Mbundu people, who were organized into small chieftains. Through a combination of military conquest and diplomacy, he subdued the Mbundu. One of Lukeni's pivotal moves was to marry the daughter of a powerful local priest known as the Manikambunga. This priest held significant influence due to his connection to supernatural powers. By forming this strategic alliance, Lukeni gained not only a powerful ally, but also a foothold in the local power structure. To further solidify his position, Lucchini adopted the customs of the Umbundu people. He married local women and took on their tribal name. This move initiated a process of territorial expansion under his leadership. The local priests, Manikabunga, continued to perform traditional rituals, maintaining the link to the supernatural. Importantly, he also played a key role in the enthronement of future kings, bestowing legitimacy upon their rule. This combination of military prowess, strategic marriages, and alliances with local power structures allowed Lucchini to establish and consolidate his authority in the region. This example shows a recurring model of constructing legitimacy by foreign kings in various cultural contexts. While magic may be prevalent in African cultures, in Europe, a king's relationship with God was of paramount importance to his rule. In fact, kingship, or any kind of absolutist power, and its close relationship to and use of religion for magic or for the purpose of legitimizing power seem an almost universal concept in human history. Fast forward to today, despite large changes in society, kingdoms are still a commonly used regime model. Across the globe, these institutions endure, though they have evolved to adapt to contemporary demands. But what type of kingdoms still exist, and where do they fit into the modern world? Let's first consider monarchies, where the ruler has full control over all state affairs. Such a system of government is known as absolute monarchy, from, take a guess, absolute control. It is characterized by a concentration of power centralized in the hands of a monarch with almost no checks and balances on their authority. The king is the real chief executive and the unopposed ruler of the state. The ruler owns you, your life, and everything in between, and they get to make the rules as they go. So while there may be a legislative body or representative institutions for the people, they don't really hold any substantial power. Louis XIV, this guy again, perhaps summed it best with his famous quote, "L'État, c'est moi," or "I am the state." He is perhaps the best example of this form of government. Throughout history, such governments have basically been run on the whims of their ruler, whose worldview and sagacity determine the destiny of their realm and subjects. While absolute monarchies often bring stability and a unified state vision, they also frequently lead to abuses of power, suppression of dissent, and a disregard for the welfare of the common people. Today, we can understand it by looking at by far the most powerful modern absolute monarchy still in existence, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Here, the House of Saud wields significant power, with the king serving as both the head of state and government. The decree of the king reigns supreme. They are at the forefront of all decision-making and rule with absolute power. However, one must remember that no matter how powerful a king is, he only remains in power as long as he can legitimize it. If the pillars of legitimacy weaken in the future, the Saudi kingdom itself may move towards becoming a constitutional monarchy. This brings us to the next and far more common form of modern kingdom that we see today, constitutional monarchies. Absolute monarchies were once the predominant form of monarchy around the world. However, the advent of democratic ideals, revolutions, and the push for individual rights during the 17th to 19th centuries gradually eroded the foundations of absolute monarchies. This shift led to the emergence and proliferation of constitutional monarchies. This transition marked a profound change in the balance of power and the nature of governance, reflecting the evolution of political thought and the increasing emphasis on democracy and rule of law. Today, constitutional monarchies have seen their monarchs' power limited through constitutions and laws. These monarchs serve as symbolic figures representing the state's unity and continuity, but have minimal involvement in the daily affairs of government. Modern kingdoms adeptly blend tradition and modernity, preserving their heritage while adapting to contemporary demands, with their ability to strike this balance being the key to their continued existence and relevance. A constitutional monarch is non-partisan and impartial, upholding democratic principles and maintaining the constitutional order of the nation. Generally, the real political authority in constitutional monarchies lies with the elected representatives and government institutions. However, the extent of their powers can vary depending on the specific constitution and the traditions of each nation. However, while constitutional monarchies do represent a shift towards democracy, critics argue that they still perpetuate elitism and inequality, with the monarchs enjoying privileges by birthright in an otherwise egalitarian society. These critics point out the enormous cost of maintaining royal families and their states, questioning whether this is a justified expense in modern democratic societies where public funds could be used for a broader social benefit. Today, constitutional monarchies are especially prevalent in Europe. The United Kingdom, Sweden, and the Netherlands, for example, maintain constitutional monarchies. As another example, Japan also has the world's oldest hereditary monarchy. The Japanese emperor holds a particularly revered position in the nation's collective identity. As we discussed, these monarchs have largely ceremonial roles while democratic institutions govern. yet they still serve as unifying figures representing cultural heritage and continuity. So in conclusion, what's in store for the kings of tomorrow? The role of monarchs is evolving to meet contemporary needs, striking a balance between tradition and change. In modern monarchies, the symbolic significance of kings and queens remains enduring. They represent the state's unity and cultural heritage. However, their roles have evolved to become more symbolic than autocratic. So what are your views about future kings or monarchy? Do you live in a monarchy or a kingdom? Tell us in the comments below how you see it evolving in the future. And if you have anything to add, also feel free to add it in the comments below. Hope you've enjoyed. We will catch you next time.